So I am Kerry Leary. I am the Director of Agency Services. I do have everybody on mute. We will unmute at the end, but I'm expecting 290 some odd people. So I think it's in everyone's best interest if we mute. I have my camera on right now. I will turn it off once we get into the slides. My internet is sometimes a little iffy, so I apologize if I freeze. I think taking the camera off might help. I do have an hour set aside for this. In order to make sure we get through the training, I am asking that you put any of your questions into the chat box. Amanda is on and she will give me the questions at the end. I anticipate having 15 to 20 minutes at the end to answer any questions that you may have. I will stay later if you need me to, but you can always call with any questions. Okay. I am going to be reading from the slides. It is going to be very boring and very dry, but I do need to make sure that I cover the material as directed and cover it appropriately. So while this training is important for all staff and all volunteers that interact with the public, it is only required for those food pantries, soup kitchens, and shelters that get TFAP, that get the USDA product that we have the case limits for. If you are not an emergency feeding program, you're not a food pantry, soup kitchen, or shelter, you don't have to stay, but you're welcome to learn more about the protected classes by federal protected classes, New York State protected classes, as we talk about people treating everybody with dignity and respect. Somebody had asked earlier if I am sending certificates, and the answer is no. You have to keep track of your participation in this training. Okay. The PowerPoint is updated roughly every year. Whenever they send it to us, we put the most current one on our website. Any food pantry, soup kitchen, or shelter that does receive this TFAP USDA product has to make sure that any staff or volunteers that interact with the public take the training on a yearly basis. Take the training is defined as you can just read the slides that are on the website and use that special sign-in sheet. Okay. We're doing it like this today to give you the opportunity to come together as a group for any questions that you may have. But again, always available to answer any questions that you have. That sign-in sheet and the current PowerPoint is found on our website, regionalfoodbank.net. You go to agencies, agency resources and forms, and then in the USDA section, you will find both the training as well as the documentation sign-in sheet. These sign-in sheets have to be kept for 3 years plus current. So using today's date, that means you're keeping 2024, no. 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Okay. Should they come to audit you, they will ask to see your record of training. So as a reminder, I am not taking attendance. You are taking attendance. While we may ask to see your civil rights training when we do a site visit with you, you do not need to send them to us unless we ask you to as part of a follow-up. So again, I'm going to have about 15 minutes at the end for questions. Put them in the chat box, and we're going to get started. Wish me luck on... I don't actually use Zoom a lot. I know that's what everybody uses, but that's not what we use. So can everybody, I'm going to turn my camera off. Again, I'm trying to say, where's my... I'm sorry if you can hear my phone. It's vibrating. Everybody can't get in. Okay, can everybody see the civil rights training PowerPoint slide? Nod your heads. Okay, perfect. All right, so we are here. We are talking about the TFAP Food Civil Rights Training. TFAP stands for the Emergency Food Assistance Program. That is that USDA commodity product. We're going to talk a brief overview of that. We're going to talk about the civil rights coverage, legal authorities, some different areas of compliance. So TFAP is a federal program hosted by the Food and Nutrition Services. Government's really big on acronyms. So Food and Nutrition Service is FNS, which is a branch of the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA. Right. The goal of the program is to help supplement the diets of low-income Americans by providing them with emergency food assistance at no cost. Any foods distributed through USDA programs are called USDA foods. All USDA foods, regardless of the program, are 100% domestic, meaning they are grown in the United States. The USDA delegates an agency in each state to administer TFAP. These states are known as the State Distributing Agency, the SDA. For New York State, that is the Office of General Services, OGS, and you may have heard of them before. Some different civil rights legal authorities. We have Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits the discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in any program or activity that receives federal funds or other federal financial assistance. We have the Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987, which clarifies the scope of the Civil Rights Act. We have Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. That prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in programs that receive federal financial assistance. We have the Americans with Disabilities Act Amendments Act of 2008, which just redefines and expands on the ADA of 1990. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in any federally funded education program or activity. Age Discrimination Act of 1975 prohibits the discrimination on the basis of age in programs and activities receiving federal financial assistance. The exception to that would be if the program specifically serves people based on their age, such as CACFP, which serves children and adults. Okay. Wrong page. We have the Executive Order 13166, improving access to services for persons with limited English proficiency from 2000. That requires federal agencies to examine the services they provide, identify any need for services to those with LEP, limited English proficiency, and then develop and implement a system to provide those services so LEP persons can have meaningful access to them. The USDA LEP policy guidance to federal financial assistance recipients regarding the Title VI prohibition against national origin discrimination affecting persons with LEP. Dear God, right? Prohibits discrimination in programs and activities funded in whole or in part by USDA. We have the FNS Instruction 113-1 and Appendix B for schools SFSP, CACFP, and C for USDA foods and TFAP. Provides information on civil rights compliance and enforcement. We're still going here. 7 CFR Parts 15, 15A, and 15B non-discrimination gives USDA agencies authority to develop civil rights requirements and prohibits discrimination in federally assisted programs or activities. 7 CFR Part 16, Equal Opportunity for Religious Organizations, gives equal footing to religiously affiliated organizations. 7 CFR Parts 210, 215, 220, 225, 226, Food and Nutrition Service, USDA, are various regulations on the different child nutrition programs. Remember, those were the exceptions to the age discrimination. 7 CFR Parts 250 and 251 talks about USDA foods and TFAP foods in particular to give equal footing to religiously affiliated organizations. While 28 CFR Part 42 covers non-discrimination on the basis of disability by state or local governance. Okay, a lot of initials here, right? So we have the Child Nutrition Program, which is CNP. That was the Richard Russell National School Lunch Act. We have the National School Lunch Program, which is NSLP. Section 2 of the National School Lunch Act amended. Special Milk Program, SMP. Section 3 of the Child Nutrition Act as amended. We have the School Breakfast Program, SBP, which is Section 4 of the Child Nutrition Act. Summer Food Service Program, SFSP. Child and Adult Care Food Program, CACFP. And the Emergency Food Assistance Program, TFAP. That is that free product, USDA product available to food pantries, soup kitchens, and emergency shelters. In order to qualify for that federal financial assistance of that free TFAP USDA product, the program application must be accompanied by a written assurance that the program or facility will be operated in compliance with the civil rights laws and implementing non-discrimination regulations. A civil rights insurance statement must be incorporated in all agreements between federal state agencies, state and subrecipient agencies, and subrecipient agencies and their local sites. When you signed our most recent TFAP agreement, that's what that is. Okay, that's you acknowledging in writing that you're going to abide by all of these laws and acts and etc. So what is discrimination? Discrimination is the different treatment which makes a distinction of one person or a group of persons from others, whether it's intentional, by neglect, or by the actions or lack of actions. Okay. For FNS programs, complaints are based on one or more of the following 6 federally protected bases: race, color, national origin, age, sex, which includes gender identity and sexual orientation, as well as disability. So treating people differently does not necessarily constitute unlawful discrimination. For example, when people apply for a job, you hire one person, you don't hire everybody, okay? But these choices cannot be made based on those 6 federally protected classes. When dealing with people, customer service is very important. You want to treat everybody with dignity and respect. Okay. You want to answer questions in a voice that's non-threatening. Clearly explain to everybody the rules as well as their rights and responsibilities. Okay. Find and use tools and techniques to improve customer service. Recognize that participants have varied needs and sometimes they have few resources to deal with that. You want to notice when a person feels they've been treated in a rude manner. You want to develop good listening skills. Learn to put yourself in their place when necessary. Learn how to deal with a dissatisfied customer. Improve customer satisfaction. Ask yourself, am I treating this person in the same manner as I treat others? Sometimes things do come to conflict. Some things to remember with conflict resolution is typically customers who are behaving in a difficult manner usually have not had their expectations met, or they don't fully understand the role of the worker. Okay. Often the customer is focused on getting immediate assistance with solving a problem and does not feel that somebody is helping or helping quickly enough. Generally, people don't want to be difficult or argumentative with a caring individual. The customer may not be aware of how their negative behavior is affecting others. Some things you can do to diffuse the difficult situation. Be thoughtful with the words that you're choosing. Check your tone of voice and your body language. You want to be warm, caring, and open, which I think almost all of you are naturally. So just make sure that is coming through in your interactions with people. The combination of this really helps to reduce conflict, and each of those components says something different to your customer. Some tips are to remain calm, state that you want to help, and ask them, how can you be of assistance? Using the information provided, determine what the issue is. Take the time to try to understand the person's point of view. Listen for details about the concern, situation, or request. Repeat back the question or request to make sure that you're understanding their expectations. If appropriate, apologize for the situation. Offer solutions. Take responsibility for finding a solution or for putting a solution into action. Don't take it personally, no matter how difficult that may be. And follow up. Personally, make sure that the customer has been satisfied and then provide feedback. If you have tried to assist the person by providing the best customer service you can, and they still remain argumentative or outright abusive, don't allow yourself to be abused and don't argue back. It might become time to tap out and let somebody else step in. Keep your own sense of self-confidence, but still try to remain helpful. But anytime you feel somebody is truly physically threatening, get away and call the police. Now we're talking about public notification. All FNS assistance programs must include a public notification system. The purpose of this system is to inform applicants, participants, and potentially eligible persons of program availability, program rights and responsibilities, the policy of non-discrimination, and the procedure for filing a complaint. Different elements of public notification. So program availability. You want to inform applicants, participants, and potentially eligible persons of their program rights and responsibilities and the steps necessary for participation. You want to give them information so they can file a complaint if they feel they have been discriminated against. And you must include a non-discrimination statement. Okay. So all information, materials, and sources, including websites used by FNS, state agencies, local agencies, SFAs, and other subrecipients to inform the public about FNS programs and must contain a non-discrimination statement. The statement, though, is not required to be included on every page of the program website, but at a minimum, that's non-discrimination statement or a link to it must be provided or included on the home page of the program information. What is this public notification stuff we're talking about? This Justice for All poster that you have, that green poster, that is your public notification system. So you have to, I guess, make a copy of it if somebody's requesting that information, but you have to place it where it is visible to the people that you are serving. For example, if you have your poster hanging inside, but you are serving people outside the building, that is not available to them. You have to bring that poster out during your hours of distribution. You need to inform potentially eligible persons, applicants, participants, and grassroots organizations of programs or changes in programs. Convey the message of equal opportunity in all photos and other graphics that are used to provide program or program-related information. Provide appropriate information in alternative formats for persons with disabilities and in the appropriate languages for LEP persons. I also want to add, if in your website, brochures, etc., you include that you distribute USDA food, TFAP food, government food, you have to have a link or this non-discrimination statement. My recommendation is to not include it in any of that. But if you do, you must have that non-discrimination statement. And here's the non-discrimination statement. And this is all written on the bottom of that And Justice for All poster. Okay, so it's advising people of their rights, not to be discriminated against for those 6 federally protected classes. But notice, retaliation is also included. Reprisal is included. So if somebody has previously made a complaint, you can't hold it against them. Program information may be made available in languages other than English. Persons with disabilities who require alternative means of communication to obtain program information, such as Braille, large print, audio tape, American Sign Language, should contact the responsible state or local agency that administers the program or USDA's Target Center. To file a program discrimination complaint, there is a specific form that needs to be filled out. Well, there's a specific form that they have made available, or you can make a phone call, or they can write a letter to the USDA. So they can complete that form and send it by postal mail to this address here, or they can fax it, or they can email it. And again, all of that is on the bottom of that poster. Notice on the bottom, it says this institution is an equal opportunity provider. That is, I'll get to that in a second. This is a non-discrimination statement in Spanish. Sometimes you can use a short version, which is what I was just talking about. At the bottom, it said, this institution is an equal opportunity provider. So you can get away with a short statement, the short version, in special circumstances. If the content and the intent is not vital to the program in nature, as in, determination of eligibility, an agreement or attestation. Examples of allowable documents would be brochures, menus, and flyers, permitting that they meet the previously mentioned criteria. And on the FNS website, they do have translations of that statement in other languages. Here is that green and Justice for All poster. So in that fine print, they have all this information we've been talking about. We are overdue for an updated poster. They don't have them yet. As soon as we have them, we will start bringing them around on our site visits when we visit you. Again, this has to be displayed prominently where you are serving people so that they can see it. So even though this poster is outdated, they say outdated, but there is no new one yet, all the information is still current and valid. Just the picture and the year has to be updated. So TFAP is exempt from data collection per FNS instruction for race and ethnicity data collection. Okay, so those self-attestation forms you have do not ask about race or ethnicity. If there is complaints of discrimination, they're forwarded to the USDA. They must be filed within 180 days from the alleged act of discrimination. They may be written, verbal, or anonymous. The state agency or subrecipient agency can develop their own complaint form, but the use of such forms cannot be a prerequisite for acceptance. A separate civil rights complaint log must be maintained by the state and subrecipient agency, and confidentiality is extremely important and must be maintained. So again, this not only includes those protected, but also perceived acts of discrimination. Whether or not it happened, if somebody thinks that it happened, they have the right to file a complaint. Again, retaliation is protected. So you can't, give anybody a hard time because they have filed a complaint against you. You must keep a civil rights complaint log separate from, you should be keeping a couple of logs, a general complaint log, as well as you have to keep that civil rights complaint log. It has to include the record of correspondence, investigation, resolution, etc. And the log must be maintained for 3 years plus current after the complaint is closed. But here's the thing, you only want one person to have access to that complaint log. You have to keep it confidential. So you don't want multiple people having access to a complaint log. Slide 28 is a duplicate. We've let them know it's still duplicated. 29 talks more about age-based discrimination. And what it says in very fine print is that any discrimination complaint they get based on age is referred for mediation. So they would refer that on for resolution. The civil rights complaint process, here is that form again in English. Here is that form in Spanish. Again, how to file a complaint. You can mail it, fax it, or email it. So state agencies are responsible for training subrecipient agencies on an annual basis. Food banks are required to keep a training log documenting yearly trainings of food bank staff and volunteers. Subrecipient agencies are responsible for training their local sites, including the frontline staff who interact with applicants or participants on an annual basis. Recipient agencies are required to keep a training log documenting yearly trainings of staff and volunteers. So if you have staff or volunteers who do not ever interact with people, they do not have to take this training. But anybody, staff or volunteer who interacts with people has to take it. So if you have somebody who cooks and only cooks and does not deal with the serving of the food and dealing with people, they don't have to take it. But new staff or volunteers must take this training before they begin interacting with people. Okay. So all staff should receive training on all aspects of civil rights compliance, including collection and use of data, effective public notification systems, that was the poster, complaint procedures, compliance review techniques, resolution of noncompliance, recruitments for reasonable accommodation of persons with disabilities, requirements for language assistance, conflict resolution, and customer service. So who are people with limited English proficiency, the LEP? The definition is individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and who have a limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English. So the LEP and bilingual requirements, Title VI and its implementing regulations, Executive Order 13166, and federal agency guidance require federal agencies and recipients to take reasonable steps to ensure meaningful access to their programs and activities by LEP persons. Some things to consider. The number or proportion of LEP people served or encountered in your eligible population. The frequency with which those LEP individuals come into contact with the program. The nature and importance of the program, activity, or service provided by the program, and resources available to the recipient, as well as the costs. Here's some various websites that you can go to help determine the breakdown, the population, the makeup of your local communities. Now we're talking about disability discrimination. The definition of a disability is a person who has a physical or mental impairment which substantially limits one or more major life activities, has a record of such an impairment, or is regarded as having such an impairment. Major life activity means functions such as caring for oneself, performing manual tasks, walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, breathing, learning, and working. Functions of the immune system, normal cell growth, digestive, bowel, bladder, neurological, brain, respiratory, circulatory, cardiovascular, endocrine, and reproductive functions. This is the ADA Amendments Act of 2008. I need to drink some water. Hold on. The Disability Discrimination Sections 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and USDA Implementing Regulations 7 CFR Part 15B prohibits discrimination based on disability in programs or activities receiving federal financial assistance. The Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, 28 CFR Part 35, Title II, Subtitle A, prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in all services, programs, and activities provided to the public by state and local governments. And these civil rights laws protect persons with disabilities if they are potential applicants or participants in any FNS-funded programs. There is also the obligation to ensure that members of the public are provided accommodations in order to access program information, applications, and assistance, whether it be Braille, large print, audio tape, etc. Providing qualified sign language interpreters for persons with hearing disabilities may be necessary to effectively communicate with these applicants and participants. Equal opportunity for religious organizations, which is 7 CFR Part 16, ensures a level playing field for the participation of faith-based organizations and other community organizations in USDA programs. We have compliance reviews. Compliance reviews examine the activities of state agencies, subrecipients, and local sites to determine civil rights compliance. The FNS Civil Rights and Program staff review state agencies. FNS staff and state agencies review subrecipients, and subrecipients review local sites. That's us, the food bank, reviewing you, the local sites. Significant findings must be provided in writing to the reviewed entity and to FNS. How to file a complaint to New York State. We can do it online, you can do it by mail, or you can email or fax. Okay. Attach copies of any documentation that you think would help support the case for a complaint. So there are 3 types of compliance reviews. There are the pre-award compliance reviews, the routine post-award compliance reviews, and the special compliance reviews. The pre-award, state agencies, subrecipient agencies, and local sites must be in compliance with civil rights requirements prior to approval for federal financial assistance. When we come to visit you and do our site visits, we are checking to make sure that your civil rights training is up to date. If you have your poster hanging, if you are a food pantry, you are using the current TFAP self-attestation forms. If not, your program gets a follow-up so that you do complete that before you continue to place an order. Routine pre-award compliance reviews. Some sample post-award review questions. Do printed materials contain the non-discrimination statement? Is the injustice for all poster displayed appropriately and prominently? Are all program information materials available to all? Have all frontline staff and volunteers received their yearly civil rights training? I want to take a second to define what yearly means, because you can look at it as sometime in 2024, whether it be January or December, or you can look at it as within a 12-month period. And there was another way that I lost in my head. But anyway, my definition of yearly civil rights training is within the past 12 months. So for those of you taking it today, 2/29/24, you would have to take it again by 2/28/23, 25. I'm going backwards. Oh boy. How are applicants and participants advised of the civil right to file a civil rights complaint or discrimination? Again, these are just some of the things that they are looking at. Are you providing reasonable accommodations as needed? Special compliance reviews may be scheduled or unscheduled. They might be to follow up on previous findings of noncompliance. They might be to investigate reports of noncompliance by other agencies, media, or grassroots organizations. They may be specific to an incident or a policy. There might be a history of statistical underrepresentation of particular groups, and there might be a pattern of complaints of discrimination. So this is what a special compliance review is. Let me go back up to this one. I also want to add, so yes, we come to visit you, the food bank. The Office of General Services, OGS, also does audits. They come out and visit various programs. So they will come and they will be checking to make sure that your food is being stored safely, that you are keeping your, what we call invoices, signed invoices on site. And that was recent communication that we sent out to you, that not just what you can see in PWW, you have to have it signed and dated that you did receive it. As well as they would be checking for the display of the poster. They'll be checking for the civil rights training logs, the self-attestation for food pantries, etc. Resolution of noncompliance. A factual finding that any civil rights requirement as provided by law, regulation, policy, instruction, or guidelines is not being adhered to by state agency, subrecipient agency, or a local site. Steps must be taken immediately to obtain voluntary compliance, and a finding's effective date is the date of notice to the reviewed entity. Verification of citizenship or immigration status should never give rise to discrimination. Remember, one of the federally protected classes was national origin. So you should not be asking them for their proof of citizenship or immigration status. New York State also has protected classes. Okay. So the New York State human rights law states that every citizen has an equal opportunity to enjoy a full and productive life. The law prohibits discrimination in employment, housing, credit, places of public accommodations, volunteer firefighting, non-sectarian educational institutions, and retaliation for filing a discrimination complaint. The law is enforced by the New York State Division of Human Rights, DHR or division, through the investigation, hearing, and resolution of complaints filed by individuals against alleged discriminators. If you believe that you are a victim of unlawful discrimination that is not one of the 6 federally protected classes, but is a class protected by New York State, you can file a complaint with the New York State Division of Human Rights. These are the New York State protected classes. We have race, national origin, sex, domestic violence victim status, predisposing genetic characteristics, retaliation for opposing unlawful discriminatory practices, creed, sexual orientation, age, disability, gender identity or expression, pregnancy-related condition, color, military status, marital status, lawful source of income, housing only, prior arrest or conviction record, and familial status. If you have questions specifically about this, you can reach out to OGS to ask your questions, or I can give it my best whirl, as can the agency services coordinators. So with that being said, I am going to turn my camera back on. I say this. Hello, make big. I'm not going to turn the camera on. Amanda, can you give me some of the questions that are in there?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So actually we had multiple of the same question.
I figured.
Just a little worded differently. If there was a way you could put in maybe a link to this, these training slides into the actual chat. I did let everybody know that it is found on our website. Go under agency tab, under forms, and then under USDA, you will see the very top 2 links will get you to the training video, or sorry, the training slides and the actual signing form. So if you had a link to that, that'd be great. And then the other question was basically how to track the participants. So to make sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing here in the chat, I did let them know that this is not a required webinar, but they are required to make sure that they are having their staff or volunteers, any people facing our client facing people signing the form. So I guess if you could just go over where to find that information, you can do a link.
Okay.
And then just one more time go through very quickly about how the staff and volunteers can make sure that they're signing the form.
Okay.
That was about it.
So I just put in the chat box a link to our website. You want to page down and get to the USDA section, and you're going to find it says USDA Civil Rights Training, and that is a link to the slides that I just shared with you. Right below that is a civil rights training documentation sheet, and that fancy word that they used for your sign-in sheet. It is up to you to police and monitor to make sure that your staff and volunteers who need to take the training take it on an annual, every 12-month basis. And again, we will ask to see it when we come to do site visits, as well as OGS would ask to see it if they come to do site visits. Is the OGS site visit random? Yes, it is. They do let you know ahead of time unless they're following up on a complaint. And explain the signed invoices requirements. So they have recently decided that the invoices that you have on your website of PWW, where you can see what you've ordered going back to when you became a member or 2007, whichever was later, that what they actually want is a signed copy. So what's in PWW is not going to be sufficient for OGS. When you are picking up an order from us, whether it be at a delivery site or you're coming to one of the warehouses, you are going to sign and date that and either save the paper copy or scan it and save it electronically.
So another couple questions have been kind of flooding through here. If you could explain where they can find the And Justice for All poster. So they're being referred to as the green poster in the chat. So if anybody sees that, that's what it's called, is And Justice for All. So
Okay.
where would they find that information or that poster?
So for those of you who do receive the USDA TFAP product, we are checking when we come to see you to make sure that you have it hanging. If for some reason it has come down and you don't have it anymore, please reach out to me or your local agency services coordinator and we can get you a new one. And I want to make sure I was clear that this training, you can take for the link that I sent you, the slides that are online, you can take them at any point. It's the same thing as what we're doing now. This is just an opportunity to ask questions. What else we got?
There's a question here regarding grant writing purposes. It says for grant writing purposes for funding, we use demographic information not connected to any identifiable information for a client, such as ethnicity, veteran status, if seeking asylum, etc. Are we permitted to ask those questions on our registration form if those answers in no way determine qualification for services?
Okay, as long as those questions do not determine qualification for receiving product. I will say for those of you who are using our Service Insights, our electronic intake platform, we have those questions built in to the system. So yes, you are allowed to use them. And if you want more information on that free electronic intake, you can reach out to me or to Katie or look on our website. Did I answer that question, Amanda?
I believe so. Sharon, it looks like you had posted the question. Did that answer that question for you? Okay. If not, oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, great. So, next question about doc items. What about receiving doc items? I had two people from my company that, oh, sorry, that was something else. I'll get to that in a second. Signed invoices for free produce and doc items. So what about that?
Okay. So when we're talking, good question. When we're talking about the signed invoices, I mean a signed invoice for picking up USDA TFAP product, something that you have placed an order for, that you have a case limit for. So we have our USDA TFAP dried beans, I don't know, peanut butter, rice, different types of things in that, and that's what we're talking about. If you don't have any TFAP product on your order, you don't have to sign the invoices, but it's not a bad practice to be into.
All right, thank you.
Apparently we did have an issue, and I apologize, where when we set this up, did not anticipate, have never had such a response to this.
Yeah,
Never.
that's my next question.
So a lot of people have been locked out. You are the lucky 100 allowed in. There was a setting we did not click because we've never had this issue before. So yay to you.
So somebody's asking for your contact information, Kerry.
Mhm. I'm putting it in here now.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm going to get that in, then I'm going to unmute everybody. And so if there's any questions that you want to, I'm able to.
So there's another one in the chat that says, does the food bank have a paid account, or does this count for per diem language translation services similar to the same as New York State government?
We do not have an account. I believe the guidance there was to reach out to FNS, and there was a website included in there.
All right, thank you. All right, so Kerry just put her information in the chat. Thank you.
I'm trying to unmute everybody. There we go.
So the training had mentioned ASL interpreter. For those staff, for those programs who don't have any staff who knows ASL, can we provide any, or do we know any resources that we have to be able to provide that?
I would ask that you take a look at those slides.
I still can't.
I'm trying to go back through them to see.
I don't know what's going on.
I think I was able to allow people to unmute, so just be careful.
What you say.
God.
I work for the
I can't
state,
hear it.
and actually I have some information about American Sign Language.
Okay.
And I speak with the interpreters all the time for foreign language, but I did have one that needed American Sign Language, and when I called the company that does that, the lady on the other end of the phone that does the interpretation, she said, "You need American Sign Language. The person that is deaf has the contact because they're this is their life." So she said they will call the American Sign Language interpreter and bring it on their phone. Is usually the way things happen. But the companies that do that is like Insight, INSIGHT. And that's what the lady at Insight told me, and that was the state contractor. And she said, "Oh, the lady on I'm trying to leave a lady a message on her
I don't
phone."
know what I'm doing.
She said, "Oh,
It's no volume.
the
I have
recipient she'll have a
86%
she'll have a contact because it's her life. That's how she lives." So,
Charming. Thank you, David.
yep. And the state uses language. That's the state's company is Language Link right now.
Yeah, I'm looking through the website or the PowerPoint, and I'm really not finding yet, but we'll go to the next question while I keep looking. Who else has a question?
I have a question.
Hi, Barbara.
This is Kristen. I have a question about, at the beginning, you said that there's no certification to indicate that we've completed this course, and that we have to keep track ourselves. But I'm a volunteer in the New Scotland Food Pantry. So when you
Yay.
say we have to complete it, when we have to keep track ourselves, in what form? Like, when you come to our food pantry and you're checking to make sure that all the volunteers completed this training, what are you looking for to see that we've
So you're going to
completed it?
have
If there's no
a separate
certification.
folder. And that folder, you're going to go to the website for the link that I put in there for on our website, under agencies, agency resources and forms. We have a link to the slides as well as a link to the sign-in sheet, which they call documentation sheet. Those are the signs. I gotta say, this is all honor system.
Right,
So
but
it's
would you
honor
want us,
system.
so we each fill out that sign-in sheet and just leave it at the pantry and they can keep it in their folder?
I would keep a folder for each year, yes. Yeah,
Okay, I'm not the coordinator for our pantry. I'm just one of the volunteers. So
gotcha.
you're saying the coordinator would have that piece of paper and all of us next time we're at the pantry, would just sign and date the day we attended this training, maybe?
Correct,
Okay, thank you.
correct.
Kristen, I
welcome,
talked
Kristen.
to Ivan about that. He's our leader here. He didn't even get on because it limits to 100 people, and he told me he will do that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and again, this is honor system that you attended the entire thing today, honor system that you view the slides on your own and sign in on your own. It's not like food safety where we have those mandatory components. It is honor system when we check or they check your sign-in sheets that you did complete the training.
We have a question here in chat. It says, on age discrimination, what is the youngest age acceptable online for food pantry distribution?
So for food pantry discrimination, their age shouldn't matter in terms of whether or not they get food. You're counting differently for HIPNAV statistics. Doesn't mean that you're discriminating against them. So as soon as that child is born, 1 minute of age, if they're saying they have a child, that child gets 3 meals a day for 3 days based on that chart. Granted that baby's not going to be eating that food, but you know what? Especially if mom is nursing, mom will need the extra calories. But as soon as the baby is born, that baby counts and should be included in the family food package. Was that the right answer to the question? Do we want to try again? In the chat, if I have a new volunteer, can they read through older copies of the slides or do they have to read the ones from today? The ones from today are the ones on our website. So they can read from the ones on our website. For the general complaint log and civil rights complaint log, how do we determine if a complaint needs to be reported to the state? It's up to the individual to file that complaint to the next level. You're going to keep track of the complaint, but you have the information posted so that they know how to file a complaint, is my understanding of this. If you want to help them file it, that's great customer service. Great show of faith. What other questions? We're doing great on time. Wasn't that it's very dry and very boring, but I thought it was important to be able to give you the opportunity to ask questions. Okay. If nobody has any other questions.
I have one question.
Okay.
Oh,
Hi, I'm trying to get to that sign-in documentation form and I just don't find it.
Okay, I'm going to put a link for that directly in here. So the link I just put in will take you right to the sign-in sheet. And I'm going to put in a link for the PowerPoint slides directly as well.
Oh, this is the documentation sheet you're talking about. And the other one is the training, which is the slides that you just went through.
Yep. While I call it a sign-in sheet,
Okay.
they call it a documentation sheet.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Okay. Great,
You're
thank you.
welcome. Anybody else?
So another question just came through, if we have a sample of a client complaint or an incident form that they could use.
Yes, I'm gonna, what I'll do is I will grab it from the PowerPoint and put it right in the chat box. Page down, page down. You only have to take this training once every 12 months. And 99.9% of the time, it will be done by going to our website and reviewing the updated slides. So you don't want to actually go to the website and download and print the slides up there, because when you go to do the training, they might have been updated. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you found it helpful, maybe a little more clear than reading the slides on your own. I don't know, but I thank you for your time. I thank you for what you do, and have a great day.